on this episode of Edge of the Web.
We want to improve titles and click-through rate for titles for this month and next month. So they can run a notebook and pull that entire analysis, and the output of that is a itemized list of all of the titles on the entire website, prioritized by the ones where there's the most potential for improvement.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Hey, welcome back to Edge Media, Edge of the Web Radio. It's always great to be able to connect with our podcast and livecast listeners over here at Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Every week we talk about digital marketing techniques and concepts around all the areas of digital marketing. That may be SEO, SEM, social media, and certainly analytics, because we're going to be deep diving today on that. But also conversion rate optimization, website development, and all the new things that are happening in this space. There's so much to know about, and things are moving so quickly. We want to be able to take a time, once a week at least, to be able to do some R&D here at Site Strategics, who's the title sponsor of this podcast. I'm pleased to be able to jump in here and be able to show this information to our listeners. Well, you can't show information to a listener; you can actually talk about it. But you also want to jump onto our live stream that we're doing each and every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, where you can actually have a contribution and talk to our guests and be able to interact and ask some questions there. So make sure you jump into that live channel, as we are doing right now. So again, the show is sponsored by Site Strategics. That's the title sponsor of the show. We are an agile digital marketing firm focused on results-based marketing, which is probably the only marketing you really should be doing. And we also shift tactics to be able to adjust. You got to be nimble in this era of digital marketing, bar none. So if you want to jump in and see what we can do possibly for you, contact us at sitestrategics.com. That's SIT strategics.com, or simply just give us a call at 877-SEO for web, or 877-736-4932, and we'd be happy to sit down and talk to you. I'm Aaron Sparks, the CEO of Site Strategics, as well as the founder of Edge Media Studios. We told you why we do it, and I want to introduce you to my cohort in crime. It's Tom Broadbeck. He's the director of digital media over here.
Hello,
sir.
How you doing?
I'm good. I launched this show with a bunch of buzzwords, and I'm just thinking, you know what? I want to unpack analytics in a whole nother way here today. Data analysis is key for SEO, key for a lot of digital marketing. And there's a lot of digital marketing techniques that don't get that level of scrutiny and that level of understanding. And we've got a great director of technical SEO research on the line with us, J.R. Oakes. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you guys? Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the show. We're doing well. Where are you hailing from today?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
How's the weather there?
It's beautiful, sunny, and about, I'd say, 65, 70.
Are you a Duke or a North Carolina fan?
Oh,
they both lost, so
sadly, I'm an NC State fan.
Oh, NC State. Okay.
We did not make it.
They didn't even make the tournament.
Yeah. Wow, rub that one in. Well, JR, you're the senior director of technical SEO research over Adapt, and it's a pleasure to be able to have you on the show today. We want to dig into a good deal of concepts of analysis inside of SEO, because I think sometimes, as much as we hate to admit it, it does get ignored, and a lot of times people are just looking at ranks, and they don't understand the deeper factors of how to actually see your SEO performance from a data standpoint, and we're certainly wanting to unpack that with you. But every show we actually bring forth the most topical digital marketing news. So are you ready to deep dive with us?
Yes.
Fantastic. Man of few words, but man, straight to the point. All right, well, let's take you through all the digital marketing news today.
I was very excited to start my reportings.
This week's trending topics.
Alrighty, so top of the list from search engine land, Barry Schwartz threw this one in. Google apologizes for the equals next previous mix-up. Now, this is some deep technical SEO concepts here. I mean, we're in the code level, but Tom, give us an idea of what happened and why would Google actually apologize?
So apparently they haven't used the rel equals next / previous piece of code for several years now, and they just didn't even realize it. So they've been promoting to use it, and then for some reason they just overlooked that they stopped using it. So I don't know if it's just a rank brain kind of thing that they don't. Rank brain doesn't view it. I'm not sure the story behind it, but there's in a random tweet they're like, we no longer support. They still support it, but it's not a part of a the way it's used to consolidate pages. They don't use that as a they don't read that part of the code anymore.
Let's talk about that for a second. And what does this code actually do for the listeners that don't even know what that is?
Yeah, so essentially it's for pagination.
Right.
So an example of pagination would be like the /page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5.
Right.
Some people use it for blog posts. They have multiple pages of a blog post. E-commerce uses it a lot for multiple pages of product categories. And so that's a way to build the authority within the one channel, the first panel, but still using it up for the users to have multiple pages so you're not taking up so much.
Right, because there's also been a challenge of those archive pages, those pagination pages, having particular problems with duplicate content because each and every pagination, you couldn't actually additionally create new content inside of that from meta content or even page content except for just displaying the blog post, right? So it was another way to communicate what this section of the site was as well, right?
Yeah.
So, JR, what do you think about, this particular code not being even reviewed or at least embraced by Google, and then their apology? What do you think about that?
I think it goes to show that SEOs have to embrace being wrong a lot. Just because we and apparently a lot of or several of the search liaisons from Google don't even know what's being used or not is being used. I do think it's part of maybe a pattern with Google because I remember reading an article a few years ago about Google using Google back in I think maybe the late 90s or mid 2000s had a Google 411 service that they kept online for a while just to get enough kind of voice queries so that they could train models to be able to better understand voice. And then we had authorship. So I think it's natural for Google to ask us to put markup in sites, but also to use that markup to understand and help their crawlers do a better job at some point where, markup may not be required anymore.
So pretty much we were asked to use it, and somebody forgot to actually be able to measure it over at Google. And this is I'm sure there's been multiple times that this has happened, but this is kind of an odd scenario. Is that we always try to do the dance and make sure that we're listening to Google and affecting those changes, right?
Yeah, and I actually had a recommendation to a client that we were working through pagination at that point, and I'm like, I need to keep him updated with I actually go back and say that I wanted to keep him updated so that if he reads something on Google that he understands and he has the latest information. But I think Jenny Holles said something interesting is that pagination isn't just for Google, it's for other search engines, it's for accessibility, it's some browsers use it for different things. So it isn't, if you're just doing that for Google, that's maybe not the right reason to do it, but there are actually other reasons to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that was maybe an important part that was lost in that storyline.
Yeah, the article says that a little bit further down and said if you use it, don't get rid of it for those reasons that JR just mentioned. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. We always want to pause for a moment whenever Google actually apologizes for something because we rarely see it. All right. So what they're not apologizing for, and they shouldn't, and they most likely love this, is over at venturebeat.com. We've got an article from Paul Sawyers. Now check this out. This is actually pretty cool. Google brings AMP-powered dynamic emails to Gmail. So Google is officially launching its so-called AMP for Email project into the general availability today, pardon me, allowing companies to give their emails a more engaging and interactive web-like experience. The internet giant first debuted AMP for Email as a developer preview last February, as its name suggests, it's built on the same technology, the accelerated mobile pages. The AMP project first announced back in 2015, right, is an open source framework designed to enable quick loading and optimize mobile web pages. Now it's actually used by tens of millions of websites, and we certainly see that as a I wouldn't say a key SEO factor, but it is a factor of compliance. But it's a value that Google's attributing to your website if you're using the AMP. If you are a publisher, I got to say that too, because it's not just AMP for AMP's sake. But the AMP for emails builds on the same foundation by allowing developers to make a boring old static email more dynamic with content that can be updated, products that can be purchased, and questionnaires that can be completed, and appointments that can be booked. Check all that out. So we got a screenshot of that. It's kind of going through some animations there. Sorry, listeners, but we certainly have this in the show notes. What all is going on here, Tom? It looks like there's a heck of a lot more interactions that are happening at this space.
Yeah, now you don't have to go back to your website from your email. Right? You can just do it all within Google.
That's what they want. That's absolutely.
No, I mean, by concept, it's a neat idea. It's like how many times do you, for a concert type of thing, like what's showing here, that you click to buy a ticket,
right?
And it takes forever to load to the website, and the site's not mobile friendly or something like that. Ticketmaster, it is mobile friendly, but some of the pages aren't.
Right.
Sometimes with the other ticket vendors, but yeah, I mean it's about conversions at the end of the day, I think. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, JR?
As a marketer or as someone that works at an agency, I think it's exciting because it's obviously a new revenue stream, revenue opportunity, and reason to build out and market to clients additional services. As a email user, I have reservations. I think, one of the things I really like about email is that it's I actually like the fact that it's sort of static and permanent, right? That you can go back 5 weeks and look up a conversation that you had or something that was sent, and then there's a knowledge that that's permanent. I guess part of me is a little concerned to go back and somehow that content has changed outside of my email client. But on the reverse of that, I do see a ton of benefits from, I think that you could potentially have, we use like Teamwork and a tool called Raytree for project management. And there's all these threads of emails back and forth about a particular project.
Right.
So I definitely think there are some wins for usability, just to have one thread that you just kind of talk about that project in one email instead of having 40 emails that report on that. So I definitely see some benefits to that. And I definitely see a huge upside for companies if they can balance privacy and some of the static natures of email, where there's a dependency on that for being able to send over things like customer contracts or sign-offs for particular work items, and then there's a permanence to that while kind of implementing all these other factors.
Yeah, email is used as an audit trail for customer engagement, and
that's right.
That certainly you wouldn't be having dynamic ads or dynamic interaction in there, but they're actually training us to use Gmail in a different way. It's almost like they're asking us to go back in, and instead of having a history, now it's a new continual engagement area. So I don't need multiple emails from a concert venue if I know that my concert email or my venue email is going to be updated with different content. Boy, that's a bold step, because now they're asking us to stay again in the Google property, right? as opposed to going to that website and actually going on a pursuit. Everything's going to start kind of evolving in this space. I'm a bit leery because we saw some trappings like this in Facebook Messenger, where there was a heck of a lot of advertising in there, and Facebook was asking us to keep on going back into that messaging service for different tools. Email's a tool, and sometimes you leave the tool alone. You can certainly update this stuff, but if you're actually creating a new expectation in an already very defined tool set, boy, you can get some cross-contamination going on there.
Yeah.
I think you also have the analytics part of it too, because AMP HTML started out with a few web components and then over time grew to a lot of different ad tracking scripts and a lot of different functionalities. So I think if HTML for form or AMP for email goes the same way, think of having 10 tracking pixels in your email account.
Oh yeah. Jeez.
Anyway,
that's horrific, JR.
I know.
All right. So anyway, watch that. It's being deployed, and I don't think you can really give some feedback, but at least it's been experimented enough on developers that something worthwhile is in here. I just can't expect to be trained in that to go constantly go back to the well and watch if something's changed. I don't know. Maybe that's the old fogey in me. How about that? Search Engine Journal from Matt Southern. YouTube makes up 37% of mobile web traffic worldwide. Unpack that for us, Tom.
You said it. 30% of mobile traffic comes from Google. Yeah, YouTube.
It is all the same.
So a report from Sandvine says which apps generate the most downstream mobile web. Here, Noah, scroll down a little bit. YouTube 37%, Facebook 8.4%, Snapchat 8.3%. Instagram a little over 5%. Netflix was 2.4%. But the article says, you're not really watching Netflix shows on your phone unless you have a child that doesn't want to sit in her car seat, and you have to beg her to sit in her car seat by pulling up a Netflix show. Been there, done that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that so much traffic was, and it makes sense if you think about it logically, that so much is coming from YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's naturally. To the point in the Sparks family, any given moment, I'll see all four of the children. The youngest one doesn't have a phone, but he'll usually mug me for it, right? And they're on their mobile devices, and they're streaming and bouncing all over YouTube. For God's sake, they're actually interested in building Nerf gun adaptation or modifications, which I'm really scared of because they're going to make them shoot faster at me. But anyway, I digress. What do you think about the YouTube mobile traffic here?
I think it makes sense. There's feature-length movies on YouTube, and YouTube's kind of the repository, and it's shared all over the internet through a bunch of different platforms. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing new there. I think, if anything, that seems to buttress the case for ISPs who are arguing that Google's causing unnecessary burden on their infrastructure without actually paying for anything, which is a little scary. If you're a net neutrality, which depending upon which side you're on of that, but it's not surprising to me, I guess.
It's probably going to get worse, or I should say more, depending on what side you're on. You're going to see more and more mobile web traffic coming. This is going to websites, so it's coming from, and this is how it's broken down. Is that these are all different platforms that are sending mobile traffic to your website, correct?
Yes.
So predominantly, you're going to see more and more video content.
Just the traffic in general.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that, and
not just solely referral, just traffic.
Period.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Yes.
Well, it's certainly going to increase. We know that. So mobile. I think that's been the coin of the realm here for the last 4 years.
Or if you don't have a YouTube strategy,
do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of, some changes here from CNBC. I wanted to throw this fourth item in, because we're usually doing 3 items. This fourth item I really wanted to bring to bear here because it is pretty noteworthy. Online shopping overtakes a major part of retail for the first time ever. And this is from Kate Rooney. The report from the Commerce Department this week actually shows a new milestone for online shopping. Total market share of sales done with non-store realtors or online was higher than general merchandise, including department store sales in February. And they quote here from Bespoke's Paul Hickey: "The days of the internet and online shopping being just a fad have come a long way over the years." So this is it. This is the first time we actually have seen it's crested now. We actually have more online sales than we do in retail. Who'd have thought? This is a big day, or big week, I should say. So we're there now. How does it feel, JR? Now we're in the golden era of the e-com, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always felt bad about it because I'm a kind of a tactile person. I actually like going in and feeling and holding and looking and putting that together. But I mean, it's the convenience of thing. Convenience drives, and especially you have large companies that are able to, lay out a lot of money and give you the convenience now, even though they're losing money for a long time. I think that's driven that. I mean, and there's also crossover. Like we use a service called Instacart locally, which you actually order online and somebody actually goes to the grocery store. So it's interesting. I think there's a lot of opportunities. And I think it's kind of surprising that it hadn't happened sooner, to be honest with you, as much as people are using Amazon, ordering online. Even Walmart's has the 2-day shipping and was late to the party there. But yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm seeing more and more of those type of go get my groceries. There's online commerce for come do my come mow my lawn now. I mean, there's so much happening.
Is there?
Oh yeah. And there's one literally. There's
I might
one.
do that.
You're literally going. I can't remember what the name of it is. I think it's like it's not Shift or something like that. But literally, you're hiring a handyman online to come and fix whatever at the house, including mowing your lawn. You talk about the challenge there. Literally, the wives and the wives are going to go out and say, "All right, if you don't do it by this time, I'm getting this guy over here." Well, what a challenge! But
I know. I
mean, are we innately a bit more lazier than ever before because everything can get drone into us? We're not wanting to go traipse down the store anymore.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I still think there's a big part of a local retailer. I think I don't know. Everybody's shifting towards e-commerce, and I think there's a unique spot where local businesses can make a differentiator and be that's not online. I think there's a marketplace there for people who want to still go in and shop.
They're gonna call it low tech.
Yeah,
low tech shopping. It's going to be.
I think a lot of it has to do with. I mean, with kind of where you are in life too, or what your kind of life situation is. Like we we normally shop for ourselves, but like we have, I have 2 daughters in competitive gymnastics who go 5 hours a week, and
oh wow,
every weekend we have meets out of town, so that type of thing is really handy for us. But I do agree with supporting local, because the saddest thing would be if we spend everything online and we don't have that ability to go shop, browse, meet, understand, talk to really knowledgeable people locally about certain types of products.
Yep, absolutely. You're going to be losing more and more of that connection. But I mean, it's been an incredible growth here from the late 90s. There was the total of market share for e-commerce was below 5%. I just want to take you back a while, right? Below 5% of market share of e-commerce, and it rose continually. In February, the online sales narrowly beat general merchandise sales, right at around the non-store retail sales last month accounted for 11.8% of the total, compared to 11.07% of general merchandise. So, anyway, there's some data for you. We all love our online shopping, and it's not a fad anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's not a fad as well is our online newsletter. Go sign up to edgeofthewebradio.com and you can join our newsletter that we're sending out each and every week, talking about who we've interviewed, who we're going to be interviewing, all these news stories, and much more. So we will never use your email for anything except sending you these digital nuggets of gold. So why not sign up? Why not sign up right now on your phone? If you text the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, you can sign up right then and there, but don't do it while you're driving, right?
That's right.
All right. So with all that, you can track all the featured trending topics of digital marketing over at edgeofthewebradio.com. But for now, let's deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with J.R. Oakes, Senior Director of Technical SEO Research at Adapt.
And the deep voice guy introduced J.R. Oakes to our audience. Let me give you audience a little bit of bio about JR. He's worked in the search marketing industry since 2010 and is the Senior Director of Technical SEO Research at Adapt Partners. There he works with clients on a wide range of fronts, including technical issues, performance, CTR, crawlability, content, and data analysis, all the fun stuff. So, JR, there's your official bio. So how the heck did you get into SEO?
I actually started in SEO. I was an architectural glass artist for about 10 years.
An architectural glass artist?
Architectural glass artist.
I saw you're going back to that on April 1st.
Yeah, thank you. My brother and best friend both messaged me and were like, "What's going on?"
That's
and
funny.
like, do you know what day it is? But I did that for a while, and I really enjoyed it. And then I found myself every weekend developing WordPress sites.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an opportunity when my first daughter was being born to go work for a company and kind of lead their WordPress development, which was quite a bit more money and working from home and just a better lifestyle. So I did that. Really threw myself into WordPress development. And then within a year was asked if I could run their SEO team. And I said no. And I was told, "Yep, you're going to run our SEO team." And I was like, "I don't want to." So anyway, we see who won that one.
What was wrong with the SEOs, man?
I love development.
Yeah.
And I love I love development because I love efficiency. And I love that you can create things of value through development.
Cool.
But that I learned to love that from an SEO perspective, and I learned to love the SEO community, who are some of the most genuine and giving and sharing people that I've ever met, especially here in Raleigh. Yeah, I mean, I became the director of SEO and then the director of strategy for a 50 plus person agency based out of Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really got into a lot of data analytics and Python and machine learning and wanted to kind of work at larger scale on things. And then Adapt has given me that opportunity. So I started to see the interesting thing about technical SEO is that it's a nice merging of development and SEO, so that it helps to have a good foundation in both of those to be a good technical SEO. So that's where I've kind of come from. But I also have a kind of a mantra that I've followed about everything I do. I want to create value. So we're able to do that for our clients and the stuff that we create at Adapt. So that's kind of cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we certainly appreciate when we are able to speak with SEOs about the stuff that we love, but especially whenever you get down to measurements and understanding the efforts that you're putting in, the value you're putting in, and how the metrics validate or invalidate some of the stuff that you're doing. You have to have that side of the equation. You just can't go off of just knowledge without verification, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So most of your time is actually spent in data analysis, data mining, and data blending. So can you share with us what those are first and how it translates to SEO?
Well, I think this is going to be kind of weird, but I think it's on the other side, because where I really care about is understanding the is basically transitioning kind of queries and these words and things into things that are useful on websites, right? That's where I've spent most of my time researching over the last couple of years. Is we use I've open sourced or pushed or shared on GitHub a tool that pulls Google Search Console data daily and saves it to BigQuery, right?
Oh, cool.
For some of our clients, we'll pull the nice thing obviously about the API is that when you go into Google Search Console and pull a report, you get 1,000 queries, right?
Right.
Using the API, you're able to pull until you get no impressions.
Oh, wow. Really?
Daily. So so we can go in to Google Search Console for 365 days and pull. I mean, for some clients, nearly probably nearing at least several 100,000 to millions of query page pairings over 365 days, right? So that's interesting, but it's too much to kind of manually kind of parse through. So we've developed clustering algorithms that, not to be too nerdy here, but
this is the show to do it. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, there's an algorithm called k-means clustering that generally takes the words or the queries and then basically randomly picks X number of points that you predefine, right? So you kind of have to guess the categories and say, okay, I want 10 categories, and it's going to take the keywords and transition them to numbers in vector space and then cluster them around these kind of 10 points, right? The problem with that is if you have several 100,000 queries from a year or 6 months of data, you would have to go, okay, do 10, no, 15's right, maybe 20 categories. So we have a algorithm that we developed that actually finds the categories for you, right? And it's actually really interesting because it uses things called word embeddings. It's a repo called Glove word embeddings that basically they train a machine learning model over Wikipedia or the entirety of the internet, and it basically embeds, turns words into these what are called vectors that have some semantic meaning to them. So we use the clustering algorithm that it will define the actual categories for you. And like you might have a keyword that says, baby diapers versus it's not the best.
That's all right.
But infant diapers, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
it's
kind of understand that those two are together.
Those associations, yeah.
Same category.
So it's forgive me, I just want to understand this a little bit. So it's not just going after root word or root phrases or root concepts. It's associated phrases and associated meanings. So even if it's a disparate phrase or there's no true stem word commonality, it's grouping that together to be able to understand that cluster and define that cluster as applicable to your domain, right?
That's right. And it's really interesting because we have a name directory and we ran it across that, and it was interesting because it kind of grouped names somewhat by ethnic group, which was and by gender, which was kind of interesting, and it did a pretty good job of that. So there's some interesting things with that. But I mean, for me, it's just getting to going from mess to somewhat clarity, right? So obviously, if we can take several 100,000 keywords and transmit that down to 74 categories, right?
Yep.
And then we can aggregate the clicks, impressions, et cetera. Then we can look at it at a site by category, and then have all the queries in those bins that we want to track and over time, right? So you're, instead of looking at a keyword level or at one particular keyword, you're looking at every kind of grouping or associated with kind of essentially particular topics that your site is really good about, right? Which in my mind, it helps to kind of get to that view rather than being at kind of a really detailed level of the keywords.
Well,
that makes sense.
Absolutely, and if you pair it up with, I'm certain that you've probably done this, pair it up with volume data from AdWords or something like that, then you actually see your own domain's fingerprint of categories, some weighted heavier than others, right?
Right.
And then you have the
share of voice.
Yeah, and the market share, and you can actually kind of get an understanding far beyond keywords of the valuation of your domain, and on top of that, be able to steer where you need to work on not only for representation, but also if you have a higher density, for lack of a better description, in one category, but it's not bringing you the clicks or the impressions.
Right.
It could be that you got to look at the representation in the SERPs to be able to see whether or not you have the correct CTAs or the correct messaging, or I mean, you're kind of getting drug into a gravity well of a category, but you're not really optimizing the visibility, the placement of those listings, right?
And I think that is the type of, I think it's more maybe ad hoc analysis than that.
Okay.
Because we don't do that at a kind of a mechanical level across all sites, but that is something that we do specifically looking at click-through rate curves by specific categories to know, which, I mean, one of the interesting things about that, and especially deep diving into certain click-through rate categories, is the idea of winnability of particular search results. Because you can have, I mean, we run across a lot of times, from keyword tools where it's like, that sounds like a great keyword. And then we go look it up, and that's a company's name who owns,
Right.
The top 10 results. So, I think it does allow you to look, and we still use a tool that Paul Shapiro wrote up on, I think it was Search Engine Land last year, which looks at, which pulls kind of a distribution across of click-through rate with respect to each position, and then does an analysis of kind of the click-through rate of each one's compared to the average or median distribution at that position. So with this type of analysis, you can categorize all your queries, and then you can perform that analysis and look at kind of queries where you have it's more difficult from a click-through rate standpoint. You may have great position,
Right.
but for some reason, maybe there's more ads in that, maybe there's more competition in that, and then these other ones you tend to do better from a click-through rate. So
it's always about the context of the positioning as well. Yeah. Well, that's
exactly.
That was some deep diving right there.
That was deep diving.
Love the clusters. So we're talking about some of the insights that you can gather. So from this data analysis, right? So let's get into how you can use that from a steerage standpoint on SEO efforts. So we just talked about one right there, is low click-through rate in a potentially high mean positioning of a category, right? So what do you do with that data? As again, this is a bit abstract or theoretical, but how do you take that and then apply that to SEO strategies and tactics in response to maybe that type of situation?
Well, we use a lot of that data to drive. It's more of a prioritization for us, right? So we're able to do that analysis, and instead of manually going through either Search Console or going through just pure ranking data, we can run the analysis kind of ad hoc. We have a hosted Jupyter Lab server, which is they're called Jupyter notebooks, but it's essentially these. They're kind of like web pages that allow you to run code within the web page. And we have that hosted, and our entire team, or at least our entire client-facing team, is trained on those. So, for example, we'll have data pulled for particular clients and Search Console data and categorized data, and then our analysts can go in and actually run that analysis for a client and say that we want to perform, we want to improve titles and click-through rate for titles for this month and next month. So they can run a notebook and pull that entire analysis, and the output of that is a itemized list of all of the titles on the entire website, prioritized by the ones where there's the most potential for improvement.
That's great.
Based on looking at the title, and it prints the title out, it prints the description, and it prints the score and the potential volume adjustment to that score. So it's prioritization, right? So they can take that, improve 20, 30 titles for that month, and then it also gives us a format to take that same data and then add it to rank tracking tools, or to relook at that in the next month to see the benefit of it.
For those of you playing at home, all right, this is where it is, because what you can do, what JR's talking about here, is be able to not only see the category, not only see the strength and volume of your terms, but also steer the pockets of your site and to optimize those, to not for clickbait, but to be able to enhance just a section that's actually ranking in the sweet spot that you're wanting to, but perhaps you're just not getting those clicks. It's really diagnosing your site at a category level, because some of your content's over in this area, some of the content's over this area, and it's giving you a feedback loop to be able to do surgery on the site to improve certain areas. And that is fantastic. A fantastic tool set. So you can see I'm geeking out here. So are these tools available publicly, or is this some collection of tools that are now your secret sauce over there at Adapt?
We are always developing tools. I think when I came there in May of 17, I think I was the only one in Python, and I think most of us use Python. At least all the technical directors and more senior analysts are all coding, improving, and doing stuff with Jupyter Notebooks. So it is kind of internal things that we kind of continually refine over and over.
So basically, you're just flaunting that in our faces. That's what you're saying.
I mean, no. Essentially, I think all developers are lazy, and they don't have to do work, right? So I think automating and I want to spend more time doing strategy and doing high level analysis, right? I don't want to spend time, manually clicking on Google or going to a tool and downloading a spreadsheet. I just want to code things, like spend 10 hours code it, have it do it for me for the rest of the year, right?
Roger that.
So that's a lot. And we read a lot, like people like Paul Hamlet-Batista, Brittany Mueller, like they share a ton of stuff, and I steal from them all the time and just work it into some tool set for us. So I think it's keeping and we open source a lot too. A lot of the notebooks that we've put out there are available either on GitHub or if you search J.R. Oaks Anaconda, you can download them from there. So a lot of the beginnings of these tools that we have are freely available.
Very cool. Well, again, I was just kidding. I mean, it was just, it's great to be able to see that type of focus happening. It's the maturation of analytics into almost this personalized, but it's a uniquely customized analysis at a per domain level. And we're getting a wealth of data and be able to stack up these tools that can parse it and be able to manipulate it based on the needs that you're trying to analyze. It's incredibly valuable. And just the ability to see that many, all the way to 0 impressions on terms, you get another window into the evolution of any given page upon launch, right? So you can actually see that growth far earlier. Be able to have, I mean, down to the one impression of that page, that the onset of that page, you get to see a whole nother behavior cycle as opposed to what you see in the Search Console, right?
You do, yeah. It's a lot more granular data that you can pull and interact with than what you get out of Search Console.
So let me back up for a second here, because this is incredibly fascinating. But how did you learn this process? What kind of courses and what type of studies did you take to dig into this analysis side of SEO?
I'm a terrible student. I am, and I have a problem that I don't like working on things that don't interest me, right? So I've burned up Coursera. A lot of the stuff is just trial and error, because that's one of the best ways that I learn is I give myself kind of a small project, right? So I want to do something that's reasonable for me to do, and I feel like there's about a 70% chance that I would be able to complete that, right? But 30% that I'm probably going to stretch on, right? So I'll give myself that project, and then I'll start researching what's written on that project, right? Are there any GitHub repos or people that have already started to do that? Are there any courses I can take? I mean, I've probably taken at least I would say 4 or 5 different courses on just Coursera alone over the last couple of years, looking at different machine learning workflows, looking at data visualization, just going back and doing kind of a more of an intro to Python course just to understand a lot of the data structures. And once I kind of got familiar with kind of the workflow, just going back and making sure that I understood the fundamentals of commenting and how to use the data structures within Python the correct way, right? So I got enough to know I didn't know enough. So then went back and kind of just reoriented myself. So that's the way that works for me, and because there's a satisfaction of putting all that effort in and then getting and completing something with that effort, that you have something tangible that you can hold that's worthwhile. So that's it's motivation for me, but that's how I best work.
But it was really based on utility, right? And as you were digging in, you were finding that this is what you wanted to use, and then be able to find your way to these next steps based on what you define as what you started to evolve of a definition of what you wanted to achieve as you were learning this, right?
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I really like the Jupyter Lab notebooks is that it's very flexible, right? So, we could go through developers and, get a whole UX done and get, the whole back end done, and then Google could change something tomorrow, right?
And they usually do.
And they usually do, right? So for us, we might just duplicate a folder, go in there, make some logic changes to the code, and then a day later, it's basically, I like it because it supplies the UX. We have to do some very light training on internal team members just to understand that it's a little bit different from most tools, and that your output's generally going to be some type of tabular data. But I like it that it's really reflexive. And if we have a new idea for something, or there's a change in Google, or there's something new that we want to do with it, that it's not an entire development process, but it's something that each of us can go in and modify and do.
Now you're telling us your particular path into data analysis. Are there any tips that you could give to SEOs that really want to crack that nut of deeper analysis and deeper understanding of their behavior or of their efforts? Because we certainly have a number of SaaS tools that give us CTRs, they give us ranks, they give us volume, they give us growth charts. A lot of ways those tools are very valuable, just to be able to see the progression of their efforts. But for those SEOs that want to dig in deeper and actually get a much more granular perspective of things, but also have a different way to look at their efforts from a not only analysis concept, but a space where, I don't know, how they can predict and how that could give feedback to them for other efforts that they do. Because everything so far in the tool sets of SEO are you put it out there and then you track it. You got to make sure you got your test ready, but then you put it out and track it and you see it go. But your type of analysis actually gives us a feedback loop to give us guidance on how to do things better regularly. And and then we can use those tools in a different way. Can you give SEOs that want to try that out and start diving into this space some quick tips?
Me and a few other SEOs, Paul Shapiro, Hamlet, Batista, Brittany Moeller, have a toolkit called MLTS on GitHub. But we have some sample notebooks on there, as well as some libraries for easily connecting to Google Search Console and pulling the data. That's for someone that I think has some familiarity with Python and how Jupyter Notebooks work. For someone who have never touched Python or Jupyter Notebooks, I would go to Coursera and just look at the ratings on courses and find something that's an intro to Python.
Cool.
And that covers something with data and analytics or maybe even has some type of module within those courses for like Google Analytics or some type of reporting like that. Beyond that, it's just learning APIs. So I'm a developer myself. I love APIs. I love reading and everything that you can do for it. So it's very natural for me. I think to a certain extent, there just has to be a will to want to go in, download. There's a tool set called Anaconda, which installs Python for you. It installs Jupyter for you. And it's basically a point and click to launch a Jupyter notebook. And you can download any Jupyter notebook off of the web and start just clicking cells and seeing how it works. So I would check out MLTS. I would definitely just take an intro course on Coursera. There's a ton of good ones on there. That's where I would start, I guess.
Yeah, if you just search MLTS SEO, you're going to be able to find that machine learning toolkit, and that's a lot of good information that you've loaded up there, JR. So we certainly appreciate that. So with your deeper knowledge of machine learning, right? And we've talked about machine learning on the show here just recently, actually.
And we will next week.
And we will again next week. So
we have Brittany on next week. I don't know if I told you that, JR.
Oh, do you? Oh, cool. Yeah, that's exciting.
Back to back.
Yeah, she's the coolest chick. I'm sitting here coding on a Saturday night, and she messages me through Twitter these words you can't even understand, and I'm like, yeah, you're playing you're playing with machines again. But yeah, she's really cool.
So we'll certainly give her those thoughts when she's on the show. So my question was, when you think about the SEO industry and machine learning, we're seeing a good deal more convergence now, and we're starting to get into a new territory with not only SEO but also advertising in general. It's the baby's about to be born here, so to speak. Is that it's going to be a new era of these type of tool sets. Can you give us a perspective of where you think SEO is actually heading into the next 3 to 5 years, and what SEOs should be prepared for?
That's one of the reasons why I've pushed a lot for more SEOs to learn some of the tools of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I picked Python, is because there's, brilliant PhD students right now writing these libraries that if you know a little bit of Python, you can use, right? And you, without much, download it, give it some data and then see what the output is, right?
Yep.
So from a machine learning standpoint, that's incredible. From an SEO standpoint, I think that content and personalization are going to be strongly affected by machine learning. I mean, I think was it Facebook, and I know Google's working on kind of story generation from content, right? So from a news perspective, how much better would it be if, instead of just listing 20 different articles for something that happened, being able to kind of compile all the information or knowledge in those articles and put together a story, right? Obviously, that's terrible for the publishers, but it's not maybe a terrible experience for users, right? Just since there's so much overlap between news sources.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff. I think it was Allen AI that released a model that they trained a few weeks ago that hit the Twitter rounds, that actually is the language model that does a pretty good job of actually generating really good content. So I don't know. I think the problem at some level is, you can train a model to generate content, but there's a lot of different kind of domain knowledge. There's a lot of different, stylistic qualities to content that may not be there for a long time within kind of generated content, but it does scare me, I guess, to a certain extent, that at some point in the future, you basically have machines generating content, and you have a machine in Google kind of picking between which algorithm generates the best content, right?
Right.
Which you could say, I guess.
Well, I mean, in essence, they're already doing it now. I mean, that's the essence of trying to be competitive in SEO. But you're talking about the users, by and large, trusting the decimation or not the release of content and the interpretation of content, and it's the machine stepping in front of that content to be able to deliver the interpretation of that. That's a good deal of trust there, that Google is looking at everything with fairness and non-biased, right?
Right.
But we also talked regarding machine learning just recently about the de-ethnicity. I don't even know if that's a word, but removing ethnic and biased and cultural norms and regional norms out of content with machine learning, to be able to try to get to a more neutral set of content and information. And that's even scarier, because we're all biased in one way, shape, or form. A homogenized type of content, and trusting the machine to process that and deliver something that we're not even ready to consume, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got on a rant there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a scary area, but I mean, I think it's with everything with technology, that I think there will be some parts we don't like and some parts we do like. And I don't know, but I definitely see, I mean, like machine vision has done some incredible things, especially in the medical space over the last few years. And I think being able to transmit like huge amounts of data into something that's human readable has tremendous benefits, in addition to a lot of the language translation work that's going on in the machine learning space. And like, imagine never having that wall of hitting something that you really want to see, but it's not translated in a really good manner. Google's obviously done a lot of that, but being able to converse real time with people and video, et cetera. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that's coming along with that as well, that flattens the earth or flattens the world.
No, I think you're right there. So pulling us back from our hypothesis of the future. Well, I'm going to stay there for a second. Hold on a second. What do you think businesses are going to be looking at SEO as in the future? Do you think they're going to be looking at it as a critical component, or more maybe an add-on extra thing to do if they have time?
I think it's hard. I mean, I think everybody's been saying that search is dying forever, and
they keep on saying that, but we have these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as there's something in between users and websites, aka Google, that you'll have some type of reason to change things on your websites to make sure that users who are looking for something find you rather than others. How much of that actually goes to Google and Google just, puts and keeps away from your site? I think that's more of the question. And if users like the loss of variety in the sites and like the more kind of homogenized content. Because if you remember back to I remember that I'm old enough to remember like the beginning of the internet and how just crazy everything was, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Spent so much time and it was a lot of time because it was terribly hard back then. But like everything was unique, right? You went from one page to the next and there was a character and a uniqueness to it. And everything kind of seems to be moving in the direction of, material design and kind of the same sort of kind of standard format. So, if there ever becomes a rejection of that, then I think that is better for SEO. But but I don't see it. I'm not worried in the near future.
No, I mean the rumors of the early demise of SEO are greatly exaggerated, and especially whenever we have the burgeoning beginning of machine learning. SEOs are going to have to put on the analysis hat. You just can't stay in rank position review as one of your KPIs. You got to start understanding at a deeper level what's happening at the machine learning standpoint, understanding what is happening so you can utilize that and apply better strategies to what you're doing. It's invaluable information, and we certainly see that you're passionate about this side of the equation. It's great to be able to have that type of conversation regularly. So kudos to what you're doing, and keep up the good work here. And also lead the way for a lot of others, a lot of us to adapt and to be able to embrace some of the technologies that you're rolling with. Hey, every show we finish up with a couple questions. What bugs you about your industry right now?
I guess the noise and the lack of people doing a lot of stuff that's really kind of hard and valuable. I remember you see a lot of content that is someone, writes a piece of content on one site, or Google announces something, and then like 100 people or 100 sites just kind of say, hey, Google announced this, Google announced this, Google announced this, right? And then they push it through social media, et cetera. So I've always respected AJ Kahn, because he wrote something a few years ago where he said why only write, several times a year, right? And he writes when he has something to say. So I kind of follow that, which I'm a little behind on this year, but I really like that. It means that when I see something come from him, that I need to read it, right? Because he spent time on it. Right. It's not content for content's sake. And there's more than likely going to be something that he finds fascinating or interesting, and more than likely I will too. So I think that's it more than anything, is to slow the roll, I guess, on the need to create content and share content and try to provide value with content.
Amen to that. Let's reduce the glut a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
The community. We have a beer and SEO meetup group in Raleigh, and we have 10 people that are volunteering their time just to kind of get great speakers in and
Cool.
drink beer and just enjoy the fellowship around Raleigh. I've met like these speakers at like SMX and PubCon,
Right.
well-known companies like Russ Jones and Jenny, and I've met Brittany recently, and it's just like there's no they really have a desire and passion to help and educate, help share their knowledge,
Mhm.
and kind of help the community grow. And like that's what is passionate. That's what one of the reasons I'm passionate and try to give back is just to help younger SEOs kind of know direction and resources that they can have to learn and kind of explore their own passions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're seeing more and more of people that are wanting to really share information and share how they do what they do, as opposed
Right.
to maybe a decade ago where it was closed door secrets because
Yeah.
of intellectual property, what have you. There's much more of a communal nature now,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of Sherpas out there helping each other along. So you're absolutely right there. Well, JR, I would love to unpack more in the concepts of data analysis, but we're going to have to bring you back another time and talk about some other pieces there. Are you game for that?
I am. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. So, final word for the young entrepreneurial SEO out there that's about to deep dive into machine learning. Give them some guidance.
Give yourself a project and just start. It's the Pressman book, The War of Art. You just have to take that first step. Mark Traphagen shared that book with me several years ago, and it's meant a lot to me. But just start.
Very good. We hear that more and more too. Just do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool. So we certainly want to promote anything for you. The @Beer and SEO is the meetup in Raleigh, right?
Yes, definitely. We have a meetup with JP Sherman of Red Hat
Yep.
next Thursday at Big Boss Brewery in Raleigh. He's brilliant and is a super opportunity for SEOs to get free beer and just listen to one of the heavyweights in our industry talk. So
Very cool.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
And you post all those online too, right?
On my Twitter, it's all over.
so @Beer and SEO is the Twitter handle, the Twitter account. Jump onto that. And if you're in Raleigh, or even if you're not, you might want to jump over there because it sounds like there's a huge time happening with these guys and gals. All right. Well, JR, thanks so much. We certainly want our audience to follow you on Twitter at JR Oaks, and as well as LinkedIn and GitHub, JR Oaks. Certainly appreciate your time today and your deep focus into the deeper side of SEO, and we really appreciate bringing some of this to light. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it.
You're more than welcome. More than welcome. Well, thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio and watching Edge of the Web Radio on our live cast on Facebook. Be sure to jump into that if you can and spend a little bit of time with us and share some questions that we can ask of our guest. Hey, you never know. They'll be able to answer you directly if you jump in there. Thanks for listening to our show, and we certainly appreciate any rates and reviews that you can provide us as well. Certainly appreciate all the hard work at Site Strategics and our colleagues, and we certainly do appreciate our guest JR Oaks. So be sure to check out all the must-see videos. Boy, I'm stumbling on my words today. I tell you what. All the must-see videos and audio over at Edge of the Web. By the way, we're also putting out a lot more content from the show over on Site Strategics, as well as our kind of our interview series that comes after the show. So dive over there and have a look at what we're doing there. We're actually going to be talking to Miss Mueller next Tuesday.
On Tuesday, yeah. We had to reschedule her, so we're catching up. Cool. 2 shows next week, starting on Tuesday, same time, 3 o'clock.
And who are we going to be talking to on Thursday?
I don't know how to pronounce his name yet, so I won't say.
That's a safe call. Safe call. All right. So from all of us over at Site Strategics and Edge of the Web, thanks for listening. And do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.